Hey everybody, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Want to get you an update on both what is now Tropical Depression Hanna, but also out in the Pacific, Hurricane Douglas beginning to barrel down on the Hawaiian Islands. So we'll take you to that first, showing you our infrared tropical tracker. We're going to take a trip out to the Pacific and show you what's going on with the situation there. This is a Category 1 hurricane, and a fairly strong one at that. We've got maximum sustained winds as of the latest update at 12 noon Honolulu Standard Time of 85 miles per hour. This is about 125 miles east of Honolulu, and it is very close to the Hawaiian Islands here, expected to pass by the islands of Molokai, maybe Oahu here. It's very close to Maui, but not looking to make an official landfall there as it moves west. It's going to keep its Category 1 strength at least throughout the duration of its pass if it does not make landfall on that last island as it skirts by, or any of those ahead of it. But this is the current path from the National Hurricane Center, which will once again maintain that hurricane status as the storm passes by. But look at these bright colors, the red, yellows, and oranges, showing you where the thickest thunderstorms are. Those strong, robust, convective thunderstorms are within this storm. So we're going to get into a little more of the satellite analysis of this going on now. This is infrared imagery. We can see, like I mentioned, the bright red showing you where the strongest thunderstorms are within this storm. Of course, it's going to be very close to the center, but as we move in a little bit closer, you can see how these rainbow colors have begun to impact the islands. But you'll notice it hasn't really spread too far to the south, and we seem to have a bit of a disorganized rainbow color here on the north end. So that shows us just from that we're having some trouble with what could be more strengthening. Douglas could have the potential to strengthen more if it weren't for something called shear that is somewhat tearing this apart. And also, mind you, Hawaii is a bunch of mountainous terrain, which does not bode well for tropical systems. It disrupts their circulation. So a couple of things helping us out here, keeping Douglas from strengthening, because I'll tell you, the water temperatures here perfect for tropical systems. We have sea surface temperatures around the Hawaiian Islands between 80, 83 degrees Fahrenheit. Tropical systems love that temperature, but we have some upper air that is really fighting against this storm's organization. So this is water vapor imagery. The orange color here that you see is drier air, and the darker shade is moist air. Of course, the teal being Douglas itself. So that orange is problematic. That's drier air that's shearing this storm apart and has actually caused some pretty interesting things to happen with this system. You'll notice here's that orange, and it's causing this fanning motion on both the southern side. It hasn't really allowed for the bands of Douglas to extend very far south before drying out. And then up here on the north end, very disorganized with this fanning. These are called transverse bands, this fanning look of the clouds up here. So it's really giving a beating to the upper part of this storm. You can think of this tropical system like a cake where we have different layers that are pretty tall. So in the upper part of the storm, that's what we see from the top-down view of these satellites. Something that's been interesting, hurricane hunters in the storm have found that our view down from satellites where the center of Douglas appears to be doesn't match what's happening at the surface. So the bottom layer of that cake, the storm is actually tilted a bit. So it's made finding the center of circulation a bit difficult for the National Hurricane Center with this storm because of that. And so they've been relying on the hurricane hunters to make several passes through the storms. They've been very busy for the past 24 hours with Douglas, and they've been using the land-based radars there on the Hawaiian Islands to try to pinpoint exactly where that circulation is and find out where the strongest thunderstorms are. But a couple of problems there. But this is great news that we have this shear and this dry air to help tear apart the storm, because, like I said, those water temperatures are very warm. That's the fuel for these heat engines, these hurricanes. They love warm water. So they've got plenty of that, but the upper air not being kind to Douglas and preventing it from perhaps strengthening more, because we definitely would have the potential for that. So we've got the tilt in the storm that makes things interesting. That's also going to play a role in whether we see an official landfall in the Hawaiian Islands, is where we pinpoint that center of the storm. So National Hurricane Center definitely has our hands full with this storm today. A couple of interesting things there. But we've got some shear in this storm, helping to tear it apart. We'll have to watch over the next couple of hours to see how it's impacting the Hawaiian Islands. We have some video we want to show you now of the sirens going off this morning, 8 a.m. The civil defense sirens were going off. Have a listen to this video here from Maui County. A viewer shared this with us. And it looks like we don't have audio on that, but boy, was it eerie to hear the sirens. Normally for tsunamis or other emergencies, and if you're used to tornado sirens, that's what it sounds like. It's very eerie, just to let everyone know that hurricane conditions were imminent here. And we'll take you now to our Surfline camera. This is out by Turtle Bay, and this is on the island of Oahu, showing you some of the deteriorating conditions. We've been watching this camera today, and so we've got the thick, dark gray clouds. Looks pretty gloomy out there. Seas have been relatively calm here. Of course, this isn't on the northern end of the island so much, and Douglas is a bit a ways from this location, but as we go on through the next couple of hours, we could see things get kind of turbulent for the waters here as that storm makes its approach. So exactly how close Douglas comes to the Hawaiian Islands is going to play a very big role in its impact to the different individual islands of Hawaii. So now I'll show you the visible satellite imagery, and that's exactly what it sounds like. We can only see the best of this satellite imagery during the day because we rely on the sun to reflect it for us, but we can see really well the texture of thunderstorms with this satellite view. So I want to show that to you from this morning. Just look at how we get the bubbling up here of the different bands as the convection, the thunderstorms occur near the center of this storm and then fan outwards. So I'll let that play out there. But you can see the texture right in here on this western side of the eye wall. These thunderstorms have been moving onto the islands today, so we had some brief but sudden tropical downpours as these bands continue to move on in. But they are pretty short-lived because of that dry air here on the southern side near the Big Island. So that has definitely had an impact on what people are seeing depending on where their location is around the island chain. And I want to show you the current watches and warnings that have been issued here. This might surprise you. We have a tropical storm warning for the Big Island because Douglas is mostly past the Big Island of Hawaii, but the other islands are under a hurricane warning. We expect to see hurricane conditions on these islands very imminent over the next 24 hours. And you notice the yellow out here, tropical storm watch. Doesn't look like there's anything out here. Well, it is the Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument, a bunch of smaller islands and atolls out there. So tropical storm watch because it'll be interesting to see conditions, how they're affected as Douglas makes its approach after it passes by the terrain of the Aloha state here. But back in the lower 48, we're dealing with Hanna still, causing some headaches for South Texas and Northeast Mexico. The problem here, mudslides with all of the rainfall we've seen. So I want to see if we can take you out to Corpus Christi, our Surfline camera there. Damien, can you pull that up real quick, please? Damien's manning the helm here with the video that you've seen. Yeah, this is from, is this our current Surfline camera? This is video from yesterday that we had shared with us from a viewer, and things were pretty rough there yesterday. Remember, the seas were churning up all along the coastal bend of Texas, but now it looks like we've got some Surfline video up from Matagorda. This is a bit further north of Corpus Christi where we've got some sunshine today. We've had the clouds break up a bit. Sea's still very choppy out there, so we haven't seen the effects of Hanna wind down completely yet for the coastal areas, especially north of the Rio Grande Valley, but we are still dealing with some difficulties here in South Texas and the rain spreading out somewhat. I wanted to point out to you that the Rio Grande Valley is under a tornado watch until 10 p.m. Central Time tonight, so that includes Corpus Christi out to Laredo and even McAllen, Texas, there on the border in Brownsville as well. So that just means we have the potential to see some tornadoes. Storm Prediction Center keeping an eye on that. And I'll explain that to you. I can show you with the radar here with what we've had going on. Oops, let me go back to it just a moment. There we go. And we'll get this put up in motion here. So you can see the latest radar for South Texas. We've seen some stronger bands here right around the Rio Grande Valley on the border there. Those purple showing you the more intense rainfall amounts with these showers and storms moving in. Notice still have that counterclockwise motion of the storm right here. So this motion, you'll see the storms basically moving from the south to the north, maybe from the southeast to the northwest. So we have the storms moving on. That creates shear once again in the atmosphere here, because at the surface, the winds are moving this way. But that's because of the friction of the land. In a little bit higher up in the atmosphere, you don't have that friction. So the winds are basically moving this way. So if I'll show you with my hands, as we go up in the atmosphere, you have winds going one way, and then they start changing a little bit differently. We have rotation and a twist. So that leads for the ingredients to where we could see some of these tornadoes moving in through the bands that continue to move across South Texas because of what's left of Hanna. So that's why the Storm Prediction Center is watching out for this area of South Texas for the potential for some tornadoes going on through tonight. Of course, the flooding risk is still there as well because we're seeing heavy rainfall. Some totals for this weekend could be as much as 16 inches for South Texas. So flooding definitely a problem here because we're continuing to see the rain. And for Mexico and that mountainous terrain, that's a problem with landslides. So Hanna is not done impacting this region of our country, and Mexico going into the rest of this weekend going to continue to be a bit problematic for folks there. I'll take you a little bit further up the coast. See these rain bands still coming on at San Antonio, getting some much needed rain there. But even up into Galveston, up by the Houston area, we've seen some showers continue on through. Up into Louisiana, we're seeing some rain. This isn't so much from Hanna. We have a upper level low pressure area here that's causing the rain over the Arklatex and Lake Charles, Alexandria, Louisiana, up to Shreveport, but definitely supplied the moisture because of Hanna and all that it's drawn up from the Gulf of Mexico. So some more showers and storms will persist here, but I'll show you where Hanna is headed as we head into the rest of your Sunday here. Continuing on a southwesterly track, this is actually going to show us the past 24 hours, the infrared imagery of the storm coming on shore is a Category 1. So this is the past 24 hours, and as we go on into the future, continuing that southwesterly track into Mexico, now a tropical depression, gonna open up into a remnant low here as we head on into the later part of tonight. So once again, our concern for South Texas with regards to Hanna is going to be with the potential to see some of those tornadoes, especially with this daytime heating we get in the afternoon. You saw the sunshine there on the coast there in Matagorda. That sunshine aids in the severe weather threat because it creates something called CAPE. That's convective available potential energy. It's what we look for when we're considering severe weather. And the word I want you to pay attention to most there in that long acronym is potential. It adds to that potential for air to rise and create storms and the potential to see severe weather. When we have more CAPE, we have more availability to see severe weather. So the ingredients for tornadoes are there. So that's why the Storm Prediction Center is keeping an eye on the forecast and has that tornado watch in effect for South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley. Once again, going from Corpus Christi out west to Laredo and down into the Rio Grande Valley, including Brownsville and McAllen, until 10 p.m. tonight, Central Daylight Time. And then we spoke last night about what was going on out in the Atlantic, and we talked about that in today's fast forecast as well. This area of interest out in the Atlantic Basin that the National Hurricane Center has been keeping an eye on. Here's the latest here. Still a high likelihood that this will form into a depression or our next named storm, possibly over the next 5 days, is this area of thunderstorms, that counterclockwise spin you see there, tropical in nature. So they've put it at a 90% chance over the next 5 days as of the latest advisory that we could see that. This red area here shows you where the storm will be moving. So as it travels through this area, we could see that formation over the next 5 days. But this is still a ways out. So there's no telling if this survives. Gonzalo made it about this far and then fizzled out because of the unfriendly environment here in the atmosphere near South America and the Windward Islands. So this area of interest could suffer that same fate if it even makes it this far. But so far, the National Hurricane Center thinking this has a pretty good chance of developing into a tropical cyclone, a tropical depression heading into the next 5 days. So it's just something to keep an eye on, nothing to worry about yet, but something very interesting to note there. The hurricane season we're only in July, second month, and we've been very busy already. Almost halfway through the list of names. We are ahead of schedule here, and we normally don't see that peak until we head into about September. I'll show you our climatology for tropical systems, and we don't always play by the rules when it comes to the tropics. We usually see our peak in September, and that's when we see the bulk of the activity. So we kind of ease into the season. This one got off to an early start with 3 named storms before the season even started. So we'll see the activity continue to ramp up as we head into the later part of the summer, but it just is a reminder that it only takes one storm. You never want to let your guard down. Have your hurricane kit ready to go and your supplies ready, and of course always keep an eye on the tropics. That's what we're here to do, is guide you through that and keep you aware of what's going on. Having your MyRadar app handy. We have a hurricane tracker, so if you like to nerd out and get all into the specifics of these storms, that's a great add-on for the app. Otherwise, we have all the life-saving information you'll need in the app with our regular version to keep track of all these storms. It's been very busy out there in the tropics, whether the Atlantic Basin or the Pacific. And it's actually interesting to note that we are farther down the list. We've had more storms in the Atlantic Basin than we've had in the Pacific. That's usually the opposite this time of year. We usually see more activity in the Pacific because their season starts a little bit earlier than in the Atlantic. But nonetheless, very active. Just wanted to get you up to date with what's going on in the tropics. If you have any questions, leave them down below and we'll try to answer them. Otherwise, we'll be back with another update as the night goes on with these storms. Have a good one, everybody.